Hello, Daniel here and welcome back to the TFL3. Today you join me at Berlin Hauptbahnhof, and in this video we will be travelling through the wonderful country of Poland. I will be taking the PKP Intercity local hauled service from Berlin to Warsaw, and then a PKP Pendolino on to Kraków. This is the second part of a multi-part series where I travel across Europe, so if you enjoyed the video, do stick around if you want to see more. Without any further ado, let's get on the train. Okay, actually before that I should probably admit that there was a bit of a lie in the intro. If you remember the last episode, there were a load of football fans in Berlin when I happened to be visiting. That meant that accommodation in the city had been booked out, so I ended up staying in a place called Frankfurt an der Oder, which is on the border with Poland, and not to be confused with Frankfurt am Main, which is probably the one you think of when you think of Frankfurt. I mention this because conveniently, the train which I am getting onwards to Warsaw stops here. In fact, it's the first stop from Berlin. I was technically meant to get a seat reservation for this train, but the ticket office at this smaller station wasn't open, and apparently this is the only way that you can get reservations. That left me with not much choice but to get on with my Interrail pass and hope for the best. So, getting on board, I was somewhat nervous. Given I had no reservation, I was worried that I would be forced to chop and change seats for the entire duration of the journey like I had on the NSDB train. However, I found a good way to get around this, as you'll see in a bit. Now it's time to leave Frankfurt Oder as another PKP Intercity train pulls in on the other platform. And not long after, we are crossing the River Oder and therefore the Polish border. This train has a few stops between Berlin and Warsaw, the most important being the city of Poznan, where the line branches off if you wish to go to Gdańsk. However, not much happened at these stops. I pass some of the time by walking up to the front and looking at the locomotive and walking through the train past the seats, which are a mix of conventional seats most of us are used to, as well as compartment seating, which I think is rather cool. Now, you may be wondering what I've been doing regarding my reservation. Not to worry, there is a wonderful way around. There is one unreserved car on PKP local hauled services, the buffet car. Now, there is the caveat that in order to sit there, you need to actually order food. But I doubt this will be an issue for one simple reason. The food is absolutely spectacular. I'm probably going to sound like PKP Intercity is paying me for this endorsement, but they really aren't. I ordered pierogi, essentially Polish dumplings, and I chose the meat filling, but there is a vegetarian option as well. And wow, absolutely amazing. Couldn't recommend more. I am genuinely not sure I can put into words how good the food is. Unlike most catering in Britain, which is usually a light snack if you're lucky, this is proper food and drink with a proper menu, which has the lovely detail of having a train on the menu itself. The only downside is that it does take a little while from ordering your food to it being brought to you, but there's a very good reason for that. The food is cooked from fresh. That is absolutely incredible. From here until I left Poland, I timed my trains deliberately so that I could travel over dinner time and get a good meal. Only 32 zloty for my pierogi as well, which is roughly £6.50 at current exchange rates. I paid 79 zloty, roughly £16, for that pierogi, plus a very nice apple pie and 2 wonderful Polish beers. Now that is a very good deal if you ask me. To be honest, I spent so much time just enjoying the food, and the Shork did as well as reading my Polish phrasebook that definitely came in handy on my trip through Poland, that I also forgot to film most of the journey. I certainly never bothered searching for an actual seat, because why would you when you could just sit in what I have dubbed the pierogi car of the train? The seats in the buffet car are hardly the most comfortable I've ever used, although given that these are swing-down seats, I am sure the ones that you would reserve are almost certainly much nicer. As mentioned earlier, you can even get those little compartment-type seats like you find on a fair few heritage railways in Britain. But again, totally worth it to not even bother and just order food for your entire journey. If PKP sponsored me, I'd come back and try their entire menu. Or maybe I'll do that anyway. For full disclosure, I think you technically are meant to have a reservation. However, once the ticket inspector came along, I just showed my Interrail pass and there was no issue whatsoever. This does not apply for the PKP Intercity Premium Pendolino trains though. That absolutely does need a reservation, but that will be coming along in a minute. Anyhow, while I was distracted with the food, the beer and the view, I find that our train is arriving into Warszawa Centralna Station, the main station for Warsaw. Now, this station isn't too bad to use, but won't win any awards for beauty. It was finished in 1975 during communist rule, and it is somewhat obvious. However, don't let the station negatively shape your perceptions of this city. Warsaw is a rather underrated city in my opinion, with a historic old town lovingly rebuilt after the devastation of the Second World War, combined with restored palaces such as Wilanów and the Palace on the Isle. Kraków receives more tourists, but if you want to visit Poland, do consider giving Warsaw a chance as well. And if you do, make sure you get PKP Intercity somewhere over dinner. Trust me, it won't let you down. You know, speaking of Kraków and getting PKP Intercity somewhere, let me now take you on a journey there. This time, I find myself getting a pendolino from Warszawa Centralna to Kraków Główny, which I hope I'm pronouncing somewhere near correctly. I should note that these pendolinos, while of the same family, did not feel awfully similar to those operated by Avanti West Coast, which most British viewers would be familiar with. Now, I did need to get a reservation for this one at the ticket office in Warsaw, as this is very much mandatory, which cost me 43 zloty on the day, or a bit less than £9. This reservation was probably appreciated, as just about every seat appeared to be full, at least on this departure. According to Wikipedia, the introduction of these pendolinos in 2014 increased demand on the Warsaw to Kraków route by 50%, which is a big win for high-speed rail over driving or flights. Now, it's time to depart, and something I didn't actually notice until it had stopped, so I missed the recording. They play Chopin whenever the train departs. Also, one thing I really appreciated is that they give a free water bottle to every passenger, so thank you, PKP. Now, I didn't get a lot of footage on this journey, mainly because I spent most of my time in the pierogi car again. What, do you think I wouldn't travel over dinner time in order to get some amazing food? Come on! However, I did have time to do a quick review of the seat, including a charge support, which, okay, it's hard to plug a charger in while filming, okay? Anyway, I did find the seats very comfortable, and they have a generous recline. So, I found that made for a very comfortable journey. Yeah, he likes it too. And now, after a few more shots from the window of the Polish countryside, showcasing that these trains are capable of 200 kilometers an hour on this line, we arrive in Kraków Główny, which, after a shot of the empty train, is the terminus, and the end of this journey. Kraków, or Krakow in English, is the most visited city in Poland, so I possibly don't need to recommend it too much, but it is still a pleasant city to spend time in. Admittedly, I preferred Warsaw as mentioned earlier, but there are still plenty of nice things to see, most notably in my opinion, the Cloth Hall, which will be forgiven for confusing with the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, were it not for the Polish text and the fact that I've already established that I'm in Kraków. With that, we conclude part 2 of my Interrail series. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more, then one will already be available from London to Berlin via Amsterdam. However, if you're feeling impatient for more of Europe, including next episode where I go from Wrocław all the way to Vienna via Prague and Bratislava, the rest of this series is already available for our generous patrons and YouTube members. See you again soon!